Hey everybody, welcome to Houdini Hangout. It is is it the last day of the month? I think it is. Yeah, no, almost. It's the end of August. Here we are. We've made it. Um, Thanks for joining me on the stream this evening. Um, if you've followed any of my social stuff, you would have seen that I'm going to be talking a little bit about Mops tonight, and I have an exciting little announcement. Hopefully exciting, that I'm going to get to in a little bit. But for right now, I want to talk a little bit about some of the. So basically, what I did was I was originally going to do a Patreon, and then some stuff came up, and I realized that I could do it pretty much for free anyways. So I was like, well, I want to give out my hip files and do some things like that. And so I'd already set up a Google Drive link. And so I put it out there. And if you go to the Discord server, which you can get to through HoudiniHangout.com. So if you go through there, sign up for the Discord server, there is an official little Houdini Hangout hip files channel in there. And if you go to that, pinned up at the top is the drive link for all of the past hip files that I've made through the stream over the months and now years, which is crazy. Yeah, so you can go in there, find a bunch of stuff, download it. The dates should line up to the hey KG, how's it going, man? The dates should line up to streams, and you should be able to go in and select them that way. So that is a little, just something that I was wanting to do. Kind of my plans changed up a little bit, and here we are. So yeah, they're free. Go grab them. I'm going to keep uploading my hip files to there until the files get too big for my Google Drive, I guess, but I don't think it'll be a big deal. So hopefully I won't make any huge files or anything stupid like that, but that's the plan. That's where we're headed. That's where we're going. That is the hip files, and those are all available. I feel like I had something else I wanted to talk about, but I guess I don't. I don't know. Anyways, last week was really fun, and I really enjoyed just kind of having some, quick rapid fire kind of questions and things like that, which is super awesome. So I'm definitely going to keep in mind to do that a bit more often, just for random questions that people have and, that type of a thing. But tonight we're going to be looking at kind of something in sort of a more focused way than that. But what I'm really interested in is any questions that you guys might have surrounding mops. I can't say that I have all the answers. I don't know the tool set inside and out. However, I certainly can run those questions and comments down and kind of put together some examples, talk through some examples coming up, in future streams and things like that. So we can kind of talk about different things, how it works, some of the basic concepts, maybe try to look into some of the more advanced concepts, kind of play around with things, try some things out. If people have questions or ideas or thoughts, always drop them in the chat. That's kind of the idea here. So, I mean, this whole day again is kind of going to be question driven, but really more so focusing on motion graphics, the Mops tool set, and we'll kind of play around with it, see kind of where we can get today, see what kind of questions come up and what kind of, things we can get into. So that's kind of the plan for today. But a fun announcement that I am planning to do at least for the next month. We'll see how it goes. We'll see how people like it and if I can do a good job, I guess, of explaining this stuff. But what we're going to do is add a little bonus stream in for, at very least, most of the month of September. And I'm going to call it Mops Mondays. And so the idea there is just going to be that we're going to have an extra little stream that's just focused on kind of the motion graphics world, using Mops to do different things. I have a license of Mops Plus to be able to kind of play around with, the DOPS context stuff that we can do and working with simulations. Again, I'm definitely not an expert at how Henry has set up Mops. If you don't know Henry, Henry Foster is the guy who puts out Mops. Really, really great guy. I got to meet him in San Francisco. And let me just pull up the website here so you can kind of see what it is we're talking about if you aren't familiar with it. So here is, I changed something on my, there we go. We don't need to fade through black. So Henry does the Mops tool set, and what he does is basically he's put together a really nice set of tools that are focused really on motion graphics, right? That's why it's the motion operators for Houdini, right? Mops. And so the idea here is to kind of replicate some of the things that you find, at least some of the things that you find in Cinema 4D, and just in general things that help with doing kind of more motion graphics style work. As I've said probably many times on here, I come from a C4D background. I learned cinema and in the late 2000s, and so I was using that for a while, especially in a small studio that I worked in, and then got into Houdini and was like, there are some nice things in C4D that are really quick to set up and you can really iterate over them fast, and there's things that aren't so easily set up in Houdini, or at least not if you don't know where to look. And so what this tool set does is really packages things together in a way that I think just makes you feel a little bit more like you're kind of back in cinema in a way, at least with the terminology and some of the concepts that are put in here. So again, you can get, there's two different kind of versions of Mops. There's the standard one that you can get through GitHub. So you can just go here, get your version of Mops. And I think right now he's on version 1.8, and there's some experimental ones. I always load the experimental ones in because I'm not working in production. So if it crashes on me, it's not going to be the end of the world. I get to play with all the fun new stuff. But there's also Mops Plus, which is a commercial add-on. And so this is all of like the kind of more, I don't want to say fancy stuff, but like really more, I think more dynamics, kind of focused elements. And so this is like just a lot more interesting things. And if you have an indie license, it's only $100 a year. And I can tell you without a doubt, your money couldn't go to a better person and somebody who's more involved in the industry. He shows up on my Discord. He'll show up on pretty much any Discord server or whatever that's out there. And he's super willing to share his information. And just a really helpful person, and just a nice person to be able to chat with. So you see Toadstorm out there in the out on the webs. That's him, I think, on most things, or at least in chats and things like that. So I'm sorry, in like Discord and Slack and whatever other things there are out there. I'm getting too old to know what all of them are. But so that's what we're really going to be talking about, is this kind of motion graphics tool set. So if you guys have any questions about this, or any thoughts, or any you've been wondering how maybe you might go about doing this, drop it in the chat. I'd love to have a conversation about it. If you're running into problems, I'll try to run it down and see what happens. I can't promise on this stream that I will, this specific stream, that I'll be able to just magically come up with the answers to everything. But I certainly will be kind of creating, hopefully, some different topics based on these conversations that we have, in order to make some, not content. I don't want it to be too rigid, but kind of start to kind of say, okay, here's this topic for this day. This Monday, we're going to talk about this specific topic in there, and bring your questions and we'll work through them, whether it's DOPS related, whether it's SOPs related, whatever it might be. We'll kind of talk through those different elements and things. So that is my idea. That's kind of where I want to go for this month. So each Monday, I'm going to have that in the that's going to be kind of part of the stream and repertoire. And if you go to HoudiniHangout.com, which I'll actually jump back over here real quick. If you go here and check this out, oh wow, this is like infinite recursion. This is bizarre. There I am right there. There's the stream. So hey, if you want to find the stream, there it is. But also, if you want to get a Discord link, you can get that there. And also, if you come down here, you should start to see that this upcoming events will be, highlighting the different streams that are coming up. So I'm still going to do these Wednesday ones. Still, these are like the traditional Houdini Hangout, whatever you want to call it. But I'm going to go, and each Monday we'll do Mops Mondays. Now there is a 1 week where I'm going to be on a little vacation. So I'm going with my family somewhere. So I'll be out for 1 week during September. So don't worry. It's not like it's just going to stop or whatever. But there's quite a few that I've got set up in here. And we're going to kind of go through it, see how it goes, and keep kind of, we'll kind of work through it, see how, if everybody's liking it, we'll keep doing it. And if not, that's cool. No problem. No harm, no foul. So the other thing I just want to highlight too on the website is I added this past streams link here. And that's interesting. It's already starting to connect to this stream that's happening right now, which is kind of weird. I didn't know how that would happen. I think Robin's laughing at my infinite recursion of me. But anyways, I have this on here now, and you can go in and find all of the different past Houdini Hangouts in order, basically, or at least they should be, at least in upload order, I should say. And this is all getting pulled from YouTube, so you can obviously find that there as well. But if you're looking for just a place to be able to go quickly, grab whatever link or whatever specific one you might be looking for, come here, and this could be a way to find them as well. So I figured, hey, might as well have them there. And maybe in the future, I will have a way to link to the HIP file from here. I wasn't able to figure that out the other night. I did it just kind of was looking through it real quick, and I found out how to do this, and I was like, oh wow, this is really quite simple. So I did it, and here we are. But anyways, so there's a few, yes, Ninehole's just saying Toadstorm is helpful on the side effects forums. Yeah, see his post where there's Vex-driven animation on prims. Yeah, for sure. Yeah, Henry's awesome, super smart dude. I will do my best to try to work through these nodes and these different kind of tools that he's built with some, hopefully as well as he could. But that will be the plan going forward here. So again, just to reiterate, if you guys have any questions about how mops work, something maybe you're running into, something you're interested in learning more about, questions, comments, anything like that, drop them in the chat. Really would be interested to hear, what you guys are interested in learning. Really, I want to start kind of assembling a list of things that I could go through each week and kind of look at a bit more and more. One thing, somebody reached out to me directly through Discord and just said, hey, I won't be at the stream tonight, but talking about, mops inside of DOPS would be really useful, and that would be something really cool. So that's certainly something I'm going to take a look at. I don't think that'll probably be the first thing I tackle, just because that is a specific element of the Mops Plus package. So you do have to have a paid version of it to get into that, which I want to show those things as well. I don't want to only focus on the stuff that's free, because I think that can be a little bit... I feel like a lot of stuff is out there maybe that already focuses on that. So I want to make sure that we do talk about some of the extra features and things like that. And it's cool. I've played around with it a little bit, not as much as I would have liked to have, but and that's kind of why I would like to have this conversation today, to have, to have a little bit more back and forth about what it is that people are interested in learning about. So yeah, if you guys have questions, comments, thoughts, drop them in the chat. Already on the list is Mops inside of DOPS, and talking about that a little bit. But yeah, just like always, there's no dumb questions. There's nothing that's kind of off limits to ask about. And I'm probably going to just start talking a little bit about what Mops is and kind of how it conceptually works on, and kind of the base level. And then we'll go from there. And as questions come up, we'll kind of branch off and start playing around with things and start kind of moving into different aspects of how it works and how to play around with some of this information and data. So yeah, so I guess that's kind of where we'll kind of, cool. Yeah. KG is just mentioning you can use Mops free in DOPS as well. Just takes a bit more setup for sure. And that's something I'm going to mention in a second here about just what it is that Mops is and what it isn't. Right. So, but yeah, for sure. That's definitely a great point, KG. That's definitely true. So anyways, like I said, drop questions, comments in the chat, things that you're interested in learning about, things that maybe you've always been wondering or had questions about, anything like that. Please feel free to throw them in the chat, and we'll kind of go through them as they come up. And so for now, let's maybe jump into some Houdini, and we'll start playing around a little bit with some of the basics of what Mops does, right? And maybe talk a little bit about what it is, right? All right. So first of all, installing it is something just kind of like you would do with any other package, right? In Houdini. If you've never installed a package before, they're pretty straightforward to install. You do something like, in here, you have a little, in Houdini, you go in and you see packages. And in here, these are the different packages I have loaded. There might be a little small on your screen, but basically I have aelib, I've got Mops, I've got Mops Plus, and I've got a qlib package. So these are just JSON files, and more or less what you do inside of them is you go in and you tell it a path that you're looking for. So for Mops, for example, all I do is go in and just tell it, basically just tell it where I want to point to. Like, this is where my Mops is installed, right? So the rest of it, you just leave alone. This is just a little package. And the rest of these are very similar. They're usually pretty straightforward, these little JSON files. And you can see here, it just has the path to where these things are installed, right? Where my aelib is installed and that type of stuff. And so if we go back up here, I've got a Houdini packages folder here. So I've got Houdini packages, and in here are all the different packages that I've loaded. Now, some of these I had loaded at one point and unloaded them. You can kind of leave them however you want in here. Like, I did have this eglib, but it was causing some weirdness, and so I uninstalled it. But it was kind of neat. I think it was causing my effects license to go to non-commercial. So so that was something that was a little weird, and I just didn't have time to run it down. But anyway, so all of your stuff goes in here. Here's where Mop stuff goes. So you download this all here, copy it into a folder, grab that JSON, and drop it over in. In fact, this one I didn't even grab the JSON. This is the original one that was saved in here, and so I didn't even need to worry about this because I already had one in the other folder. So basically the JSON just tells Houdini any JSON that's in that packages folder within your Houdini whatever folder, that's what it installs. So you can usually tell pretty easily if something's loaded by checking here, like, okay, I can see that I have Mops Plus. Now, not everything is going to have an object level, thing. So I'm just going to go to geometry. I'm just going to double check that it's in here. And it's working. And so here's Mops Plus. So those are all loaded. So it's working great. And just like with any other thing, you can see here's aelib, here's my qlib stuff, all that, it's all loaded. It's all working and good. So Matt was asking in the chat, how do you go about time offsetting copies or animation in Mops? That's a great question. I don't know the answer to that, but we can play around with it today. We'll see where we get. And, we'll kind of go from there. But yeah, that's a great question. So time offsetting copies, very interesting. So let's first just kind of look at what Mops does, right? Like kind of look at what is happening here, right? So I think probably the thing that you're going to use it for a lot is setting up things like a cloner in C4D, for example. And in this, it's called the Mops instancer. So there's a couple different ways that you can actually instance things in Houdini. So unfortunately, this isn't just another one, but so I think you might sometimes hear like instancer and think that's, one thing versus another, but that's kind of just the name of how this is going to kind of clone these objects around the scene. Now it will do this efficiently through using packed geometry, but we'll get to that in a second. So what you do is you basically can just, let's just grab a couple test geometries here. So let's grab our pig head and our rubber toy, and let's grab Tommy because they're all relatively good sizes. And if we just shift click each of these and drop them in here, we're going to start getting kind of this cloner behavior that you might be used to in something like Cinema. And if I grab my instancer here and go to distribution, I can change something like the size of this and kind of spread them out. And I can change the step. Oop, I went too far with that. Don't drag. Oops. All right, so let's just do that. So let's make the size a little bit bigger here, and I'm going to up the step a little bit as well, just to make it a little bit bigger. Let's do this like something like that. Whole bunch of copies. We'll maybe make this every 2, something like that. So basically what we're doing is we're making a grid of these objects, right? So we're starting with, let's just do this 10 by 10 by 10, something like that. And we'll do every 3. So here we go. We've got a grid of these objects. They're obviously being randomly instanced onto here, and they are getting copied, right? So each input that comes in here is going to become kind of one of our Mops geometries, right? And so if we look at this, just middle click on this, we can see now that we have 27 copies in here. And so we've got 27 packed geometries. And so what we should be seeing here is points, and I'm going to open up my geometry spreadsheet. We should see points up to 26 because we have 0.0. And so now we have a bunch of points in here that each are holding one of these geometries. And this is the idea of packed geometry. We've probably talked about this before on the stream. It's basically just a way that you can copy all of your data into one specific point, and then take that data and basically copy it to multiple points around your scene. So in this case, each of these geometries that's coming into this kind of multi-input are going to become one of those packed geometries. We can see here that each of these are named, right? So they're each going to be named. And we're also going to have an object path here, right? And so each of these are going to have a path to one of these geometries. So whether it's rubber toy, pig head, Tommy, it's going to select one of those. So let's just do this. Let's just put a null at the end of this here and just wire it in. We'll just grab this down here, because a lot of times when you're creating these packed geometries, you might, just in the viewport, you might lose the color a little bit. It's something that can just happen with the viewport. So let's just do this. We'll do this without, and now we have our geometry. We can see the color on it, and they're all kind of randomly assigned like this. All right, so let's just take a look at sort of what's going on here, right? So we have a distribution type of a grid. So here we're distributing these objects over a grid. We can do any sort of different things like a sphere, right? We could make a little spherical distribution of these objects, and we should make the sphere a little bigger because this is obviously pretty small. So if we do something like, let's do 3 maybe for the radius. There we go. We've got a little sphere and we've got 10 points. Now we could do more points here, go crazy, but let's not do that many. Let's just do something like this, right? And we also can change things like the cone angle here. So this is going to change how far kind of away from the up direction that it's going. So here you can see the cone direction is up. So this is kind of making like a hemisphere across the top of this. You could also do a fill sphere. Instead of being on the top, you can put them inside of the sphere. In this case, you probably, let's see, hold on. We're going to turn the cone angle back down. If we fill the sphere and do a couple more copies, they should all kind of start to go inside a bit more as opposed to only staying kind of on the surface. You can see there, it's pretty touchy, but there's a bunch of points inside now instead of just on the surface like this. So interesting little distribution there. Let's go just kind of blast through a couple more of these, like radial. Radial again is going to be very similar to what you'd be familiar with using in C4D. So we can scale this up a bit. We can see that these are going to be kind of around a circle, like so. There we go. We could also do something like a honeycomb. Now this is going to be a little trickier to see because in this case we're going to not really see the honeycomb pattern maybe per se, but let's just do this. Let's make this a little bit bigger. And instead of it being in a straight line, let's see here, make this a little smaller actually, sorry. Let's do 6 by 6 by 6. And this will do 10 by 10 by 10. We'll just make them a bit bigger. And so what this is going to do is try to pack these in more of like a hexagonal nature. So it's going to be like these hexes here. And it's going to have different cells and things like that. So it's going to be a little bit different the way that it's packing it, just not going to be that even grid. And then a curve, basically this one we would input a curve, or you could input a mesh as well and have them say, scatter on that object. So for example, if we took something like, well, we'll just take a sphere. Why not? Sorry, here we go. Sphere. We'll just take a simple sphere. We got a polygon mesh. And what I'm going to do is just drag this into here. And that should now instance those onto the sphere. They're really mashed in there. So let's turn the total number down a little bit. Maybe do 10, maybe do 20, something like that. Let's make this sphere a bit bigger. We'll do this at 10, maybe, just to get a nice big size. And here you can now see sort of how this is working and how these are being instanced onto that geometry. So let's do something like this, 35. There we go. And so here we're seeing that, hey, Jamal, welcome to the stream. Welcome to the stream. So here you can see that we're obviously copying these to this geometry. And this is certainly where this starts to get more interesting, where you could copy things to simmed geometry in Houdini. There's a ton of different stuff that you could do in here. But this is kind of the most basic way of kind of going about making some of these objects and kind of going from there, working with these. So this is like 35 packed geometries, right? So we have 35 instances in here. If we look down to our geometry spreadsheet, we'll see a couple things interesting here. There's a thing called Mops falloff, and we'll kind of play around with that in a second here. There's also this Mops index, right? And so that Mops index is basically just going to tell us which index in here that we're looking at. So if we look at index 0, that should be the pig head. So let's just double check that. And if we look at index 0 here, that should be the pig head. 2 is Tommy, because that's the third one in, and 1 is the rubber toy. So that's great. So those are some interesting things just to kind of note, that there's a Mops index. There's also an ID for each and every point. Each and every object in this instancer is getting its own ID. That we're also naming each of them. That's just good practice in Houdini anyways. Oh, sorry. Yeah. The Discord. You're just asking a question about the Discord. You can go to houdinihangout.com and the Discord invite is on there. So go ahead, grab that. A couple other things. P-scale. P-scale is, if you're not familiar with that attribute, it's just a way to uniformly scale an object up or down. So I believe if we were to take something like the global transform here and change it, this is going to change that P-scale. So here you can see the P-scale is changing to 49 because we have, or 0.49 because we have the uniform scale set here. So this is just uniformly scaling the size of these objects, basically up or down. You can see in here we have our global transform, so we can do translation, different things like that. Let's go back to a grid. We'll just go back to a grid here, and we can kind of play around with this a little bit more and see what's going on here. So we have this grid, and what we can do is now change the indexing mode, right? So right now we have it on random, and that's going to be just randomly setting this mops index. Just for a couple other things here, we have scale, we have rest, we have up, just a few other things in here that help us kind of keep track of some of these attributes. Scale allows you to scale on multiple axes, things like that. But let's take a look at what this is going to do with the mops index when we change this indexing mode. So instead of random, we can do something like ordered. And now we're going to have these ordered kind of, you're going to see this sort of as a pattern here, right? So it's like 1, 2, 0, 1, 2, 0, 1, 2, 0. So we're going in a more ordered nature through, change this to smooth shaded. Oh, there we go. So now we've got this ordered kind of pattern going on here with these objects, right? So this is a little bit more, this is a way to specify exactly what we want to have happen here. Now, the point attribute one is interesting because, hey, Terry, welcome. Nice to have you on the stream all the way from Colombia. Welcome. Oh, and just for anybody that's joining a little bit late, cool. Yeah, well, welcome. If anybody has any questions or thoughts about mops and how it works, I'm trying to kind of gather up some information tonight. I'm doing kind of an introduction to mops, but I also want to gather up questions and comments that, obviously we're not going to, I'm not going to maybe be able to track them all down tonight. I really want to get some ideas of things that people are interested in learning about, things that people have questions about, all these different kind of ideas just to be able to gather them together, because we're going to start doing a Monday stream called Mops Monday, and it's just going to be focused on working in mops, playing around with, with different kind of motion graphic techniques and styles and things like that. And so if you guys have questions or thoughts or comments, drop them in the chat here. If you're not following this live, you can head over to the Discord, and there's a place where you can actually put down your ideas for future streams. And so that would be a great place to put this as well. You can add a post in there and just say, hey, here's an idea for a mops stream. Like, what about something like this? And you can see some other previous things that people have put in there as ideas. But that would be a great place to drop that in as well. Apoxia. Yeah. Super late in Europe. Yeah. No kidding. Super late in Europe. I was actually, this was going to be an earlier stream, but I had a work obligation that I had to do from 5 to 6:30, so I couldn't do it much earlier than this with still eating dinner. So yes, I would like to do one a little bit earlier in the future to be able to allow the European folks to be able to join. But yes, welcome, glad to have you, and glad you learned a bunch through the burning cloth simulation that I did recently. Okay, so the one thing that I'm actually, I haven't played around with really too much is the indexing mode, right? And with this, I guess there is, I'm not even sure how you run that one, to be honest. But what it's basically looking for is an index attribute, right? And so here it's looking for this mops index. And so what we would want is some sort of input geometry here that would basically that would come in and give us that attribute for it to be able to look up from. This is sort of similar to how something works with like a copy to points. If you're not familiar with that, what this is doing is kind of wrapping up the idea of copy to points into a really nice workflow and making it a lot easier to kind of play with and work with. And I'm sure if we go inside of here, I'm sure that if we go inside of here, somewhere in the guts of this, okay, there we go. I guess Henry ended up showing up tonight. Nice to have you, Henry. Thanks for being here. The indexing attributes for when you're interesting to a template mesh. It's basically what the variant workflow is in copy to points. Right, but the instancer was written before variants were available. Yes. I see. So if you use a template mesh, it'll pull that in. Got it. Cool. So basically what Henry's saying is that if we took something like the sphere here, and if we did a, let's do a integer, attribute adjust integer. That's kind of what I was thinking, Henry. I wasn't 100% sure, but so if we do this and exactly, yes, you use copy to points and mops nodes interchangeably. You don't have to use the instancer at all. Yes, exactly. So and really, when you look at what the instancer has done, Henry's done some really nice stuff here and actually kind of packaged up certain things. Like if you go in and what was it? What was I doing here? I was on so when we're instancing to a mesh, right? I'm just gonna put another null down here so we can copy this and say template, something like that. And let's grab this instead. And so what he's doing here is basically, this is a scatter. This is this is a scatter stop, like some of the controls from it. And so you're scattering points on this object, and it's grabbing those and copying and instancing these geometries onto those. So so it's like you said, it's really interchangeable. All of these nodes are interchangeable because it's built with Houdini as a foundation, right? This isn't something that's like a plugin that you have to do this one specific thing and have this one specific checkbox ticked, or else it's not going to work, right? So in this case, what he was just mentioning there with the point attribute is we got to do this mop index. So we have this attribute adjust integer, and by default it's set to variant, and that'll work with the copy to points kind of by default. But if we do mops index here, and instead of let's just do constant first and we can kind of see what's going on here. So we're inputting the template. Let's just copy that and check this out and see if this works. And there we go. So what this is doing, this is pulling this mops index value and using that to, as it's kind of scattering these objects onto the sphere, it's saying, okay, what attribute exists on that sphere, and pulls that out and uses that to define this mops index. So as we change this here, we're going to get different ones of our indexed geometry coming in from the instancer. And what you could do instead is do something like this where you randomize it, right? And now obviously we can't go to 0 to 9. Let's do 0 to 2 because that's what we have. And so if we do this and change the seed, this is going to give us different random values, right? But and this is fine. This is obviously a very valid way of working. But let's just say you wanted to do something, a little bit different here, where you wanted to maybe paint certain attributes or do things like that. Well, what you could do instead is let's take this out and let's just do an attribute paint, right? And do something like this. And let's just say that we wanted to, instead of doing float mask, let's do, can I do this actually? I might not even be able to do this. Let me just double check here. Yeah, there we go. Cool. So we're going to do that. And so what we're going to do is the background integer is going to be 0. The foreground integer is going to be 1. And so what I'm going to do is just kind of come in here, and you can see I've got my brush. Wherever I paint, that's going to now start to add in integer of 1. So here I'm starting to paint these attributes around, and I'm making like a little mask here, right? So here's my 1 integer, right? And so I'll up the number of copies here just a little bit, just to make sure we see this a little bit more clearly. But so there, now we have some rubber toys there. I could paint some, could paint some more over here, a couple more rubber toys like that. And then maybe I wanted to go in here and say the foreground integer is going to be 2 now, and that'll start to paint some Tommies in here, which is just a weird thing to say, paint some Tommies. That's a weird phrase, but here we are. It's Houdini. So, so this is all, well and good. This is a bit maybe niche, but you can start to see how you could drive some of these different elements with things like attributes, right? So we're painting mops index onto here. So if we look at this, we can see that we've got painted attributes on this mesh, and that's driving how this instancer is working. So these are some really cool things to be able to kind of play around with and do. You can certainly do all of the same stuff like Henry was saying with the copy to points, but you have to do some setup, you have to do some work, a little bit of extra stuff this is kind of a clean way of doing it, kind of getting you to that workflow maybe a little bit quicker. So really nice little, yeah, so for sure, yeah, you could certainly do that with lots of trees and things like that. There's a few different ways that you could maybe go about doing some of these different things, right? So there's a few different paints. Like you could do I think there's even a terrain paint that you could use with height fields and stuff, like a height field paint. So you could do that as well, and use that as kind of your template geometry. There's a lot of different ways that you could go about adding attributes, but you can also just randomize it too, right? And just kind of get these random values. And another thing too, just to keep in mind, is when we have this attribute adjust integer, when we look at this here and just say, let's do this again. I shouldn't have deleted that because here I am back at it. So let's do this as a noise, and we'll do it between 0 and 2. And what I'm going to do is just make this a little bit more. I'm just going to do this as a polygon and do this at like, I don't know, 10. Just going to give it a little bit more resolution so we can see this noise pattern. And so what we're going to do here is if we make the element size a bit bigger, right, that's going to affect how this is driven, right? So as we adjust this element size, it's going to make, you could make maybe bigger chunks of it that are all sort of the same thing. And there might be, little parts here and there that are different. So you can see how these noises are kind of being applied globally here, and you can kind of play around with that. So yeah, I mean, it certainly is a thing that you could check out. Just kind of this idea of instancing in general is really powerful, and is something, once you have this packed geometry idea, it starts to really open some doors up for you. And similarly, if you've ever seen me play around with anything in USD, the instancer in there, it works sort of similarly in some ways, and it actually, you can have points, and it copies USD assets to points as well. So that's a little bit more advanced, but I mean, these ideas kind of stack on top of each other, and you can kind of do a bunch of different things, with these different techniques and ideas, basically. So, this copying using attributes and all that kind of stuff is a really, really important part of how Houdini works, right? So I'll just leave this here. We really don't need it per se, because we could obviously get something very similarly with kind of the default distribution. But again, the cool thing that we could do is we could throw anything in here. So like you could throw in, what's something else test geometry wise? Let's just grab the head, I guess. It's a little weird maybe, but let's just grab a head. Let's see how big is that? Where is it? Oh, it's so tiny. Just make it bigger. Oh, it's horrifying. Huge head. So like, just because, hello, that's not what I meant to do. So obviously, because it's Houdini, you can do crazy stuff like this, right? So you could stick it all to a head, right? So there's all sorts of different ways you can go about doing this. So, and we're just using it. We're just using attributes on points, on primitives, that kind of stuff to drive all of this. So that's pretty straightforward. Hopefully that starts to get you understanding a little bit of what's going on kind of under the hood here. And so I've kind of talked about some of this stuff before on the stream before. So another thing that's kind of really neat that I was playing around with in here. So let's leave it on mesh. And if we go here and if we break all of these connections, right, we're just back to nothing going on, right? This is just empty. Now, a really interesting thing you can do here too is you can just drag and drop these in here, and it'll make these like paths to these objects. So it's really interesting. And we can go down here, and this will look the same and have all the colors and stuff. So basically, instead of having it wired in here, you can uses quick add objects, and it'll create these different instances. And you could create an instance from file on disk. You could create it from, whatever, from SOP geometry, object geometry, all that kind of stuff. So super, super easy to kind of go through and work with these different instances and things like that. So you're asking, is it hard to orient them? No, it should not be. If this works similarly to to how the copy to points works, and there should be a copy to points kind of internally there, like I said. What we should be able to do is add a let's just add a normal here first. We'll do a normal. And so this shouldn't look any different. So we're going to add a point normal here just so that it's on the points themselves. And this shouldn't change anything, whether we have this point normal or not. However, let's see if we reverse these, if that'll change this. Yep, there we go. So now we've reversed that normal and everything is facing inwards. So with Houdini instances, the normal direction is defined, like when you copy things, it's defined by this x-axis. So here you can see that we're looking in, this is the x-axis right here. And so every time you instance something, it's going to be pointed. That's kind of the direction that this normal vector, is facing from the object, right? So it's going to try to create its own normals to kind of figure out what that out kind of facing is. Another thing I should mention as well is that we can kind of change the way these are oriented. I'm going to clear this not oriented, but kind of just the way that they're set up here. So let's just do this a match size here. And we're just going to kind of clean these up a little bit so that the pig's sitting a little bit more in the center. We're going to scale everything to fit kind of in a 1 meter box here. And we can just copy and paste this across with the match size. This will get everything kind of in a relatively good spot. And now they're all, more or less at the same scale and all that kind of thing. Interestingly, we probably could change the uniform scale a little bit. Let's just double it just to make them a little bigger. But now they're all relatively the same size. So, okay, so we have these normals. I'm going to unreverse them, and we're going to look at these here. So there's all of our normals, right? And so what we could do here is, instead of doing it just this way, there we go. There you go. Exactly. Right from the horse's mouth there. Yeah. So there's a lot of different things that you can do here. And so what we could do is we could do a attribute randomize here if we wanted to, and we could do it this way. So we could take something like n on the points, and we could just say inside of a sphere. Could take a look at this, and this is going to just create crazy normals all over the place. And then when we instance this, they're going to be kind of facing in a bunch of different random directions and things like that. But really, I think this is probably not the best way to go about doing this. This is just one way that you could do it. And like Toadstorm was saying, there's a bunch of other tools and things like that. So let's look at some other things here. Like let's look at some of the other tools that kind of come packaged with the standard mops. So let's pull this open, and we can see in here there's a bunch of different things. So let's go into the modifiers. So again, if you're used to C4D, these modifiers are going to be really similarly conceptually to, I think those are called modifiers in there as well. It's been a few years since I've actually used Cinema now, but let's do this. Let's grab this mops randomize and drop this down, and we'll start to see what we're able to do here. So this is obviously where things start to get a bit more fun. So let's do randomize orientation here. And so what we're going to be able to see is that this is now randomizing them based on, basically negative 360, positive 360. So if we just click this on and off, we can see that this is randomly rotating all of these with these different objects, right? So this is just creating random orientation. Don't worry, all of us, Epoxy, all of us get headaches with orientation. It can be the bane of your existence. But it's nice to know that, like Toadstorm was saying, if you take your an N and an up vector in pretty much any of the instancing or copying type operations in Houdini, it'll usually use those as the, like you said, the forward facing Z direction and the up Y direction. So N is Z and up is Y. That's pretty standard across all of Houdini. So usually if an orientation attribute is made, it's usually taken from those two, just kind of as a starting point. So anyways, we've got this randomized. We can change the seed here. I mean, obviously that's crazy looking. And we can also just grab this here, and it'll say whatever the rotation, multiplying the rotation. So if we set this to 0, we should have it back to where we were, and sure enough, we do. And so this is a way that we can kind of play around with how much rotation we want to add in, right? So, there's a bunch you can do there. We can also give it a minimum and maximum. And the weighted randomness is going to be a way to, I think that, yeah, so this is basically weighting it as to what values it's going to be allowed to do. So let me just do this here. Bring this down. And so I think this is mainly they're just going to be facing outwards, or I was thinking this would be 0 or 100, but maybe, oh, right. Because I think it's pointing in the two different extents. Let me just put this to 0.5. Sorry. I think that's what we want. Yeah, I think that's doing what I'm expecting it to. Anyway, so this is, I'm not even 100% sure what that's doing there. Maybe Henry can give me some love on that one, because I'm not sure what that is exactly how that's working. But so with this, I'm sure he'll respond in a second. But with this, you can randomize orientation, you can randomize position. So here we can randomize our position. We can give it a minimum translation. Here we'll just do 1 and then 1. And so now we're starting to randomize this in space. In fact, we could go a little bit lower on both of these here, however. And so now we're starting to get these kind of randomized rotations, randomized orientation, position. There's a bunch of different things you can do in here too. You can randomize the scale. You can randomize uniform scale. So this would be like the P scale. So this is going to make sure that it's not scaling in some weird axis. So now we're getting random small ones and big ones and all that kind of stuff. If we randomize scale itself, this will actually stretch it in kind of probably some weird ways. Although it doesn't look like it's scaling. Maybe that's because can you not scale? No, okay, they are stretching. It just wasn't super obvious to me when I was just looking at it at a glance. But anyways, this randomized scale is going to do it, uniquely in each axis. So you can also randomize color, things like that. Although in this case, it doesn't seem like it is randomizing any color. Interesting. I see. So the reason for that is because these actually have textures on them. So what we would need to do is set these. Let me see. Can I just turn off the shader on all of these? Yeah. Off. Textures, off. All right, cool. So if I did this and then they're all at 1. Let's see. I'm just going to throw this down here. There we go. So basically it needs to have some sort of color, I think, coming into it on some level, and then you're able to randomize it from there. So now we have a randomized hue and things like that. And we can tweak that around, do whatever. So you can get a lot of this is kind of the standard stuff that you would expect for, from something like the Mograph tools and C4D, that type of thing. This is your randomize, modifier. All right. So Henry replied, percentage of chance of minimum to maximum. Okay, I see. So it's a percentage chance of minimum to maximum. So if you have, right, so when it's 1 on both sides, that means you have a full chance for the minimum and a full chance for the maximum. And then, you can basically adjust how the chance is between the minimum and the maximum. I see. That was what I was missing. So yes, I get it now. Thank you, Toadstorm. That is good. So anyways, we've got these objects in here. We're starting to play around with them a little bit, but let's also touch a little bit on what gets really interesting and is super powerful in some of these other, like cinema, and that's, your fields, your falloffs, things like that. So what we're going to want to do is maybe drive this by some sort of a fall off of some sort, right? And if you look at these nodes, what you're going to notice is that there is this fall off attribute here, right? And so that was the one thing we kind of didn't touch on when we were talking back up here at this instancer. We have this mops fall off and everything is set to 1. So that means your fall off is completely up at 1, 100%. So let's go in here and let's look at some of these mops fall offs. So there's a few different things. There's audio fall off. There's ways you can combine fall offs, fall off from attribute. There's noise, object, plane, all sorts of different things. So let's just do something pretty simple. Let's just do a plain fall off right now. I think that should be, nope, that one. Yes, this is just setting it. So, well, let's still do it and we can kind of play around with it and see just what's happening here, right? So we have these objects here, and by default, all of these are going to respect this mops fall off attribute. So here we can take this and we can actually set this. And what this is going to do is drive all of the outputs of all of these different modifiers, right? So as this fall off goes down to 0, these are all going to kind of go back to where they were when they were originally created, right? Also, we're getting the color to modify down this ramp, right? We have this ramp in here. So, so for example, if we didn't want to have this whole ramp here, we could just say, just do something like that, right? We just have color on it. We could also just add color as well, but it's fine for right now. So as we go through here, we're going to see that this is now kind of blending from 0 to 1, how much of those randomize and color modification that we're doing in this on these objects, right? So this is allowing us to be able to kind of control that. So that's just a plain fall off, right? Just setting the fall off straight up. And then the other one that we could do is this a remap fall off? Is this what I'm thinking of? Nope, that's actually remapping the fall off. The fall off that I was looking for is, I think maybe it's spline fall off. All right, so what we're going to do, let's just play with this. So we have a spline, right? So let's just do something like, I think we can just drop a line in here. And so let's do this. And let's just do, actually, it's probably a little easier to see with a grid. Let's do a grid instead. Distribution. Let's do a grid. Cool. And I'm going to do only one. Oops. Let's do a fixed number. So we're going to do X and Z. Cool. Do the distance a little bit further like that. Great. So there we go. We got the color. We've got the randomize here. And now what you're going to see, let's just change the direction of this to something like this. We'll change the length a bit here. And so all right, so we're just setting the minimum and maximum distance to this spline. And basically, this spline is now going to, actually probably the points on it. That's why I see now. So what this is doing is I think it's sampling each point along the spline, if I'm not mistaken. So I think if we up the point number, there we go. So just for reference, like we have individual points here, right? And so what it's doing is it's finding kind of the closest point to it. And so when it only had 2 points to start with, it was only finding 1 point here and like 1 point here. And then some of the middle ones were starting to catch on. And so what we're going to do here is we're going to up this a little bit, maybe we'll just keep it at the default to 1, right? So now as we move this line around, we're going to see that anything that's close to it is going to kind of be affected by this, right? So we have fall off that we're able to kind of control with this spline, right? And so anywhere that's within what would we set it to? Between 1 is going to be the maximum distance that it'll have any, and 1 and 0 will be the minimum distance. So you can set this and have it be a little bit so it's a little tighter to it, so they only really react when it's right there, right? So now they're only going to react when it gets super close, and then they kind of switch back. And obviously the middle one is always kind of being influenced by this, but if we did something like this and kind of moved it around, oops. Sorry, I meant to grab it on the plane here. Yep. So as we kind of move it around, we can see that these objects are kind of being influenced and being, basically it's creating a fall off attribute on those specific points. So let's just move it this way here, and we'll take a look at what exactly is happening, right? So if we look at this here, we're going to see that these Mops falloffs are now being controlled, and these all either have 0 or some variation between 0 and 1 depending on how far away they are. So here, as we move these, I'm just going to pin this. We'll just leave it like that. So as I move this around, we're going to see that some of these different points are going to get varying values of that fall off. And so that fall off is just an attribute that lives on these points, on these instances, and kind of gets pulled into these different modifiers and controls, the randomization, the color, things like that. So for example, here, if we go back to the default color from fall off, we'll see that as these kind of move around, the colors are changing as well. So now we've got both of those really respecting how that's moving, in the scene or whatever. And it's randomizing it, and it's also adding in that color value. So what we could do here is we could actually turn off the randomized color. And as we kind of move this around in here, we're going to have it go to red and then back to purple, right? It's going to be kind of a linear back and forth. So that's one way that we can do it with a spline fall off like this. And this, we can do different, noises and things like that to apply to this spline as it's going around. Now it's a little hard to tell here, maybe because, let's see here, if we make this a little bit further that it'll pick up from. Let's do it like that. Let's just do it like that. What we should see is the ability to kind of, let's see, we should be able to add some noise into this, right? So this is just adding in a little bit of noise into this fall off value. So I believe if we check this, yeah, we're going to see that there's a little bit of extra noise there just to create that little bit of extra randomness. So it's not just perfectly uniform based on how close they are, gives it a little bit of noise there. You can also have time varying here. So it looks like, yep, as we do this, we get a little jiggle there. So that's kind of cool. So we've got these objects kind of jiggling around as time goes on. If we turn that off, they're just going to be static. So that's kind of neat. We've got a remap here that we can fit to different values and things like that. But this is all pretty standard stuff. And I'm not going to go into, I don't think, any more detail than that, at least right now. And so the other thing you could do is you could do a fall off. So let's do a shape fall off. And so this is going to be sort of similar, except it's going to, oh, this was the this is the one I was thinking of as it was. I wanted to do the fall off from, I was thinking that this one was bringing in meshes, but it doesn't. Anyways, so this is a linear fall off here. And so what we're going to do is we can see that this will linearly, we can fit it to this shape, right? So if we go in here, we hit enter, we can see that we have a little linear kind of display, like the start and end of it. If we go down to the out here, we can see that as we slide this across, we're going to have it move back and forth and kind of fade into that full, this is the full extent of it being randomized, and this is the minimum extent of that. So as we look at this here, sorry, let me unpin this, move this again, we'll see that those fall off values slowly go up and up and up and up and up until they get all to 1 or go back down to 0. So this is obviously really, this is kind of super similar to what you would see in cinema. You could do a spherical one as well. So then here you would get, you can move this around and you'll have a spherical fall off, right? any number of different fall off patterns that you might want in here. I think, yes. So let me see, fall off. Yes, that was the one I was thinking. I was getting these two confused. So the shape fall off is exactly what you would kind of see by default in Cinema. And in fact, I'm just realizing that I have this scaled to 0 on this axis. So I'm just going to scale it to, I don't know, like a 6 so that it's back. There we go. Now it's a nice torus. It's like, why is that flattened? That was weird. Yeah, there should be a delay equivalent as well. Let's see here. Mops modifiers. Yep, there's a delay modifier as well. Excuse me. So we'll get to that in a second. So the other thing that's kind of neat here is that this one has a second input here. And so I believe what we can do is do a mops transform fall off. I think if we put that in here, that's going to do it. I think. Yeah, cool. So you could actually have a fall off here that's going to transform it. And you could, drive that with a bunch of different things. You could even have an object drive it. Right, so you could have something here that's gonna be an object that defines how that is being affected or whatever. And so you could do, I think you could do this. Let me just see, like if you had something here, I think this will work maybe. Then if I move this, no, I guess it has to be at the object level. Yeah, that makes sense. So it has to be I think it has to be at the object level for that to work. But anyways, excuse me. But this can be cool. And you can do stuff where you can combine these fall offs and do different things like that. And the object fall off is sort of similar to the spline one, except it just works with meshes and we need a second input, and I shouldn't have deleted that sphere. So I'll make them a sphere for the millionth time. And here we've got, our object, and the closer it is to this object, it's going to kind of apply that mops fall off attribute. So here you can see we move this sphere around and these different objects will kind of jump around. And so what we can do here is we can say, where's the area of influence? Is it inside? Is it outside? Right. So anything inside of this sphere now isn't going to be affected. Right. So if we take this and move it around like so, you can see that the stuff inside is the stuff that's staying still. So that's cool. You can also do something like surface distance, right? So this is the distance to the actual surface. So as it gets closer to the surface, it'll move, and then the further away it won't. So let's just make this a little bit bigger so we can kind of see what's happening here. But it's not going to stay once it gets inside. It's only when it's close to the surface. So this could be good with something that isn't a closed geometry, right? Like a piece of cloth or something like that. If it was moving around, that would be good for this. So yeah, again, bunch of stuff. You can add noise in here to kind of make sure that that's, random on some other level and stuff like that. So cool. All good. We've got bunch of different ways to do fall off. So that's kind of nice. Let's just go back to is it shape fall off? Yes, I think so. That's the one. Cool. All right, so let's just do this. We'll add some noise to it. Maybe we'll make it time varying. Oh, actually, you know what? We want to play around with this delay a little bit, I think. So let's do that. So let's do this. Let's just do a plain fall off. I think this is going back to my Mograph days. All right, so we've got our plain fall off here. We can animate this up and down, right? So let's start it. Let's just start it at 24 at 0, and we'll go up to 48. We'll give it 1. I'm just going to turn down the timeline here. So let's just do this at 96, something like that. All right, so we'll have it like that, and then they'll move into place. Question? Oh, I didn't keyframe that. That would be why. Don't know how I missed that. All right, let's actually just do it at 60. We'll go to 1, Alt. There Now they should be doing it. There we go. So they're going to move into place all together, right? So let's do a delay. Mops delay. Let's take a look at how this works. All right. All right, so what this is doing, hey Mark, how's it going, man? Welcome to the stream. Hey, we got to have you back on again soon. Let me know when you got something you want to share or work through with the with everybody out there. So okay, I'm just trying to think of how. Awesome. Cool. There you go. We can hold him to it. He said it right here. I have it in writing. I'm trying to think of the best way to show this because this is really weird. This is weird that I'm in bed with you right now, Epoxia. That's very strange. So I think probably I'm just trying to think of the most logical way. Yeah, hopefully the following ones will even be a little bit more interesting as I get into some more in-depth topics as I hear about like what you guys are interested in. So yeah, keep throwing in, questions in here because I definitely will play around with this stuff a bit more, start diving into it a little bit more as I know what you guys are interested in kind of talking about. So, obviously right now we're just kind of doing some really simple basic stuff, but yeah, so, all right. So what we could do here is, okay, I've got an idea. All right. So we've got this here. We've got a plain fall off. It's just randomizing those. Let's do a shape fall off now. And let's do this, linear. Let's auto fit it here and we'll just do that. So it's 6.8, sure. So we've got our nice linear fall off here, and what this should, let's preview it so we can see it. There we go. So now if we use our fall off for our delay, this should delay it. Yep, there we go. So now what we can do is we can delay our fall off using this shape fall off right here. And so if we turn it like so, it's going to adjust that and delay it across here. And let me just scale a little bit more. Oops, wrong axis. Scale a little bit more like this. And then now we're going to play it and we can see it all deform based on that. So it's going to start over here and go across. So what we could do as well is we could remap that, because right now what we're doing is we're actually we could probably delay this a little bit more. So let's do this. Nope, that's too much. Let's do 1 second instead. So the one thing to keep in mind is that this is actually a solver here that it's solving for. So it is calculating this and has to kind of recook itself. So if this becomes orange down here, just hit reset, cook it again, and it'll calculate everything for you. But here you go. This is starting to do that, like you were saying, this delay animation type setup. And so let's do correct rotations. Let me see what that does. See if that's any better. Curious what the difference is there. Let's see. Gotcha. So basically that's just the correct rotations is basically just trying to sort of I guess it's just trying to make sure that as things are rotating and moving with this delay, that if there's like a little pop or something weird in the rotation of the orientation, that it'll correct that. So anyways, cool. So that's our Mops delay right there. So yeah, this should work with a bunch of different things. And really, so what I'm doing, again, just to remind you, is at first here, I'm using this plain fall off. I'm setting a value here. And this is just allowing me to kind of animate this random motion, right? And then I'm taking this Mops fall off and I'm overwriting it again here, kind of just setting up a new fall off that's sort of just staying still here, right? And so, that's the only thing that's weird, is that they're moving out of it. So there's maybe other ways that you could maybe do this a little better. Just trying to think. Yeah, so what I could do here is give this, I could actually do this up here as well and give it its own fall off. So I could say, delay fall off up here. Now I have a Mops and a delay fall off. When I come down here, just trying to get rid of C4D, huh? Yeah. I did that a while ago, but that was because I was trying to do simulation stuff. But Mop Spring, there we go. So anyways, what I'm doing here now is, instead of using the Mops fall off, I'm going to use delay fall off. And so now this should delay based on the delay fall off, and that's a static thing as well. It's not going to be changing here. So my delay fall off is static. My Mops plain fall off is going to be animating. And then as I do this here, this should just, yep, cool. Yeah, so let's do that. Let's do the spring. Oh, if I can type. Spring modifier. All right. So what we should be able to do here is, let's, instead of doing this so slow, let's do this a little faster here. So let's just click Shift, and let me just, why don't we just do this a little quicker, and maybe something like that. I think should work. Let me just see. Hello, let go. What the heck? Sorry, just blew everybody's eardrums out. Laughed in your ear. Hey Zach, how's it going, man? Welcome to the stream. All right, so cool. So let's throw the spring modifier in here. And there we go. We've got some springy pig heads. So that's kind of fun, pretty interesting. So yeah, there we go. We got our spring modifier, and again, just to kind of reiterate what specifically is going on here, right? We're doing this all with these Mops nodes, right? But at its core, what we're modifying is just these packed geometries and attributes that exist on them. So this is very much kind of like taking the concepts of it's kind of taking the concepts of these motion graphics tools that exist, that were created in Cinema, and probably exist in other packages, I don't know, but and taking those and kind of making this nice wrapper around how Houdini works, right? So that's the really nice thing about what's going on here. So so again, we can, take these and tweak these different settings. Now, this is going to be a little solver again. You can see you got our blue setting, our blue bar down here for the cache. That is what this solver settings is doing. And this is basically setting up some memory and what frame this starts at and all that kind of stuff. But you can see here that we can use the spring modifier for a whole bunch of different things. So if you had an animated object coming into here, you can actually change its sequence time, right? So I think let's try something, because I don't know the answer to this for sure, but let's give it a shot. And then we'll kind of see if anybody else has any other questions or anything like that. So let's do this. Let's grab Crag because I know that he's animated. So let's grab Crag. And yes, I tried the same thing. I tried to indoctrinate my my coworkers, but they just didn't bite. I don't know. They're too hooked, I guess. They didn't really want to do the they weren't really into the simulation stuff, I guess. I don't know. Just doesn't make any sense to me, but hey. It's their world, I guess. They can do what they want to. So here's a bunch of crags, right? So let's see if we couldn't delay these. I think we can. Let's see. No, I guess not. It was too good to be true. I see. Yeah. So, got it. There we go. There's the answer. So if you want to delay animated sequences, you got to cache them to Alembic or BGO. So I guess what I could technically do is... let's see here. So let's do... Let's just do this. I'll just write it up to an Alembic. Be fine. We'll just do this as an ABC. Oh no, aces. That's the scary stuff to get indoctrinated to, man. Whew. Color stuff. Sheesh. No thanks. I'm glad I never was like somebody that had to deal with like all of the crazy rendering stuff all the time. Just simulations for me, thank you. Color science. Horrible. I think this is what he was talking about. So I think if we do this and we grab Crag ABC, there he is. Clamp. Let's do this. 96. Cool. All right. We're getting somewhere here. And let's do a fall off. Let's do a shape fall off here. And we'll do it from that side to that side. Just preview it. Well, I might be missing something here, but this is certainly something I can look into for the future. I'm sure Henry could point me in the right direction as well, but I don't know what is the issue there, but it should be pretty straightforward. Anyways, so yeah, so if you guys have any other questions or thoughts or anything like that, feel free to drop them in the chat for this evening. Oh, interesting. Mm. Yeah, it's weird. Interesting. Well, not the end of the world. I was just playing. I was just playing around with that. So, um, interesting. Mops and vellum constraints. That's interesting. I hadn't thought of that. Yeah, sure. That I mean, yeah, maybe I'll have to think about how that would work exactly. But yeah, for sure, we could definitely. It's an interesting question, Ruben. Yeah. So one thing that Mops would be really good at doing is because it's all packed geometry. Like, there you go. Cool. Mops and vellum specifically. There you go. So yeah, take a look at that, but certainly I might be something we check out and kind of talk about a little bit how that would work. So the one thing that would be pretty straightforward to do, because these are all packed geometries, is rigid body simulations become pretty not easy, but certainly a lot more simple to do. So like if we take something like this, right, and we randomize it, I think if we take that and then just, oops. Can we actually just throw it right in here? I don't remember. That's interesting because they're packed. Maybe. Let's try. So what's going to happen? It's not going to work. Yeah. Hello? Oh, right. I animated it. I forgot. Let's just do this here. Randomize. Cool. And then if we just do a transform, we should be able to just move these up. Like so. There we go. Ah, yes. That's the only thing. Didn't like that with the piece scale, right? Interesting. Huh. I don't know why that's scaling back up. I'm sure there's some reason for that. But anyways, oh, it looks like I have a scale attribute set. Weird. That is really strange. Scale. I'm just going to delete that. I don't know why it's doing that. It's definitely a weird scale thing going on. All right, I'm just going to delete that attribute. That should be good. Throw it in there. And then yep, there you go. So this is kind of similar to like how C4D deals with these kind of things as well, where it's like kind of once you have it in this type of a situation, these are all just kind of ready to go for like a bullet solver, something like that. So with rigids, it's really easy. Template point attributes. Gotcha. Interesting. Yeah, so like piece scale and all that kind of stuff. Interesting. Yeah, it looks like the orientation is going away as well. That's really weird. Yeah. Anyways. 9hole was just asking, can I add a time shift beside the Mops instance or loop? No, it's great. You don't have to. You don't have to. I don't have to ignore you. That's great. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, I think Toadstorm did write the Aces Radiance. That's great. Very cool. So yeah, so these are all, these are all packed instances. Packed geometry and stuff like that. And so we can, I think if we do that, take P scale off, maybe orient as well. And then up. Weird. I don't know why. Yeah. Anyways. So yeah, so there's a lot of different things that we'll be able to kind of go over and talk about with Mops and with these different tools and techniques and stuff like that. So again, I just wanted to kind of have this kind of opening conversation to kind of talk about how things are going, talk about, some of the basics of Mops. Again, I've kind of touched on it before in the past. But I think hopefully this starts to give you some ideas maybe about what you could do with Mops and kind of going forward. So certainly we're going to look into a lot of different simulation type things. We're going to look into, just maybe some Vellum stuff, all sorts of different things with Mops and Mops Plus. Maybe we'll get you interested enough to sign up for Mops Plus and get some, get some more users heading Henry's way for his troubles. But hopefully we'll show some really cool examples of that and different ways that can be used. So that's kind of my plan for these Mops Mondays, as I'm calling them, and kind of moving forward. So that'll be the plan. And so I think I'm just trying to think if there was another question that got in there. I don't remember. Don't think so. I don't think so. Yeah, you're welcome. Very, very welcome. Yeah. So like I said, Mondays, keep an eye out for social streams and channels and things like that. I'll be posting that out there, and certainly be dropping in the Discord server any ideas or thoughts you guys might have of things you're interested in learning. Certainly a lot of simulation stuff I'm sure will come into that, but also just talking. I mean, there's a ton of different things in here under Mops. We've got all sorts of different falloffs and different generators, modifiers and tools and things like that. Some of these things I know that Henry and I have talked about a little bit, and he's, certain things have kind of become redundant as things get added into Houdini or as different tools come out or whatever. But, it's always good to know kind of what some of these things do. Maybe it will, introduce you to some other things along the way. And then, there's all these different fall offs and different generators and things like that. I saw that. I think Henry recently put a kineffects stuff in here, if I'm seeing that right. So that's kind of cool in the plus stuff. Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I think that's what we'll end up doing, Epoxia. Do some cool Mograph type things, but then also really play around with the fact that, this is Houdini, right? So we don't have to inherently kind of lose any of this stuff along the way. We don't have to bake it down to X, Y, or Z. We can kind of just keep playing, keep iterating, keep working, and kind of, modifying these in different interesting ways. So there's a lot of really cool stuff. Oh, right. There's rig noise that's fun. I think if you Henry, you might have to correct me on this, but I think that's very similar to how Chris Rutledge does some of his kineffects rig stuff, where he's got some randomness that he'll add to his characters and things like that. So that's pretty cool. That's under plus as well. And a bunch of other things. And then there's obviously some nodes when you're working in DOPS also that are really nice as well. So I think what we can do is talk about some Mograph use cases. If there's something that you've seen and you're interested in, that's out there, that's in the motion graphics world, maybe some example from somebody that did something in C4D. Oh, cool. Yeah. Henry's just saying that, yeah, the tool makes it easier to do local world space rotations. Yep, exactly. So you can set limits and things like that. And with fall off. So that's really nice. So yeah, maybe we'll have to take a look at that and kind of make up a little example at some point on one of these Mondays and kind of look at how that works, because that's super cool and can be really honestly super tricky to set up with kineffects if you want those randomized rotations. And that's why Chris had his own little HDAs that he had written out and saved, because obviously it's kind of annoying to have to set it up every time. So easier to do it once and forget it. So cool. That's great. That should be a fun thing to kind of play around with. But yeah, so I mean, if you guys have any anything that you've seen out there from the motion graphics world that you're interested in seeing how, maybe talking about how that would be done in Houdini, and really how maybe you could even go further and be able to do other things with it and kind of add in other things like, maybe attach vellum to things, or I don't know, maybe a million different concepts or ideas that you might have. Drop that in the Discord server and add an idea to the I can't even remember the name of that channel. What is it? Sorry. There's a topic suggestions channel. So, go in there, drop an idea in there. If you have something that you saw, maybe some Mograph person do, and you're like, hey, how would I go about doing this in Houdini? And, sometimes it's funny because it's the things that are, kind of the bread and butter of Houdini, like pyro simulations and, fluids and different things like that. Like those things are really difficult to do in other packages. And sometimes it can be pretty straightforward to do in Houdini, but sometimes you come across stuff like this where you're like, oh, I want to do these random, just super abstract kind of ideas. And it's like, sometimes you feel like you have so many options. It's like, how do I choose a path forward? Whereas like some simulations you kind of have certain steps you have to go through to get to the end result. Whereas this could be a little harder to maybe know exactly the right way to go. And so having the guardrails and having this kind of tool set like Mops helps you to get to that end result maybe a little bit quicker and with a lot less pain. And then you can start to actually do the fun playing around stuff that you can do in Houdini. That's harder to do in some of these other packages. So if there's not any other questions or thoughts or anything that anybody's got, I think we're probably just going to end it here tonight, a little earlier than usual. I knew this wasn't going to go quite as long because I just wanted to kind of get everybody's minds working on it, announce that, on Mondays we'll be doing Mops Mondays for September. So that should be really fun. And I'm looking forward to that, to just kind of have one kind of stream a week that's kind of dedicated to that. And then on Wednesdays, we'll talk about other things and kind of go into maybe some more interesting use cases and things like that. But so hopefully that's something you guys are excited about. I'm definitely excited to do it. And I know I talked to Henry about this ages ago, and I've been traveling so much this year, and I keep kind of starting and stopping and having ideas of different things and going all over the place. So I'm kind of glad to be able to finally kind of just force myself to do this, I guess, and just get in there and get it going. And hopefully, again, like I said, hopefully this is something that sounds interesting to everybody and is something that should be exciting. And so that's, again, like I said, that's where we'll kind of end for this evening. If you would like access to my HIP files and things like that, I will be dropping those in the there's a link in the server, and I'm just gonna name my my stuff here, since you guys will be able to grab this, and I don't want to make anything too confusing. But this file will be up on my Google Drive at the end of the night. And so you can go on, and probably in a couple of minutes, actually, it'll be up there. But you can go on, you can download it, you can play around with it if you want to, and just kind of start seeing how some of these tools are. Now, granted, for these, you will need Mops, so keep that in mind. You'll need to have Mops installed. If you run into any problems with that or anything like that, Henry has his own Discord, so you could always reach out to him. But certainly, feel free to reach out to me. I mean, Henry's probably way more responsive. He's super awesome with all that stuff. He's always on the ball. But if you run into any issue with installations or that kind of thing, I know I think he has some information on his website as well for that type of thing. So, and probably on the GitHub. So check that out. But again, like I said, if you do run into problems and you want to reach out to me, no problem. Happy to help. So yeah, this again, just the start. We'll kind of keep going from there. And yeah, looking forward to playing around with some motion graphics stuff every Monday with you guys. So, and yeah, maybe we'll have Mr. Fancher back on sometime soon and get something to chat about maybe on a Wednesday or something like that. So cool, guys. Thanks so much for everybody being here and for chatting and asking questions and throwing ideas out there. Thanks, Henry, for spending some time with us this evening as well. Always nice to have the official creator here. It's always nice. Yeah, thanks everybody for joining, and I will see you guys next time.